Hi, my name is Kat, Artifact Librarian, and welcome to a new reading vlog. Today will be the start of my HRCYED reading vlog for March. HRCYED is the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do. It is hosted by Q from my channel Cordy, link in the description. And every month I make a vlog where I read books specifically for that. So there is a new releases challenge within it that you have to read new releases within 60 days from their release. So I always try and read them in the next month. So today I'll read a February release. I also try to do heritage months if they have one in the month, which in March it's Women's History Month, so I'll read something for that. And then I try to make sure that there is like at least one other square that I finish off. So I've made a bit of a TBR. Let's get over them. So first I have Aquitania by Eva García Sáenz de Urturi. This is a historical fiction set in the 12th century. And the Dutch title, as you can see, has water in the title, which is the one element I still need for the Avatar challenge. And then also this book was originally written in Spanish, so it works for the translation challenge. I haven't been able to find an English translation, so I can't really read you an English synopsis, so I'll just kind of translate the Dutch synopsis as I read it to you. 1137. The Duke of Aquitaine, the most wealthy region in France, is found dead in Compostela. It looked like a conspiracy, and his daughter Eleanor is out for revenge. She marries a son of the person who, according to her, is her father's murderer, Louis VI, King of France. But the king dies during his son's wedding under equally suspicious circumstances. Eleanor and Louis VII will have to find out together who wants him, an unexperienced king, on the throne. Decades before the death of the Duke of Aquitaine, an unknown boy is abandoned in the woods by his 5 mothers. Maybe he's a monster, or maybe a saint, but the little boy survives and will eventually become one of the most extraordinary men in medieval Europe. So, very intrigued. I've heard that it's like quite fast-paced. Like my library labeled as a thriller. I don't think it's gonna be like an actual like a thriller, but I think that it's gonna be like some fun political intrigue and some scheming and stuff, which I'm really looking forward to. Then for a Women's History Month, I have Cleopatra by Natashe Solomons. I've also found friends that are called I Am Cleopatra, so maybe it's like UK, US thing, because if I look at what the original title is and like the copyright stuff, then it says original title is just Cleopatra. So maybe it's like US, UK type of thing, but this is also a historical fiction about a historical figure, namely Cleopatra. So I'll read you the synopsis. The favorite daughter of the pharaoh, Egyptian Princess Cleopatra, spent her childhood hiding amid the scrolls in the great library of Alexandria, dreaming of one day writing her own story. When her father dies, naming both Cleopatra and herself his brother Ptolemaeus as his successors to the throne, danger arises. While the young queen sails the Nile to greet her people, her brother plots to eliminate her and rule the empire alone. But while Ptolemaeus has the power of the kingdom behind him, Cleopatra has her cunning wits. When the great Caesar arrives from Rome, she realizes he could be the key to her salvation, though courting this powerful man could cost her everything. Can Cleopatra save her life, her throne, and her beloved Egypt, and finally write her own history? Told from the dueling perspectives of Cleopatra and Kaiser's mistress Sevilla, Cleopatra is a powerful, addictive, readable retelling of the alluring queen's life. a modern retelling that goes beyond the previous caricatures. Cleopatra is a fascinating portrait of the flesh and blood woman behind the great legend. Natasha Solomon's spellbinding story of female power and fragility, love and loss, pure friendship, and terrible betrayal introduces at last the real Cleopatra in all her glory and vulnerability. So yeah, I'm really excited for this. Cleopatra is just generally a figure that sort of speaks to the imagination. So I'll be curious to see what Natasha Solomon's does with her, as there are like a lot of myths surrounding her too, and like how those will be handled. So I'm curious to see. I'm interested. It looks fun, and this one I can also use for the subgenres of choice, because I'm doing historical fiction for that, and this is a biofiction, which I don't have, and I try to do a different time period. So I have antiquity. So that is 2, and then the one I don't have physically, I'll read this in an ebook, is my February release, and that is "And the Corpse Wore Tartan," which came out on February 12th. So I'll read the synopsis. "Move over, Miss Marple. The great and the not so great are gathered at Stuart Castle Hotel in the heart of the Highlands for the wedding of the year. But they weren't expecting Detective Sergeant Roberta Steele to crash their party and get horribly, horribly drunk. The whole valley has been cut off by a massive thunderstorm, and the phone lines are down. So when the father of the bride's body is discovered, decoratively impaled on a stag's head in the hotel lobby, it's up to D.S. Steele to find out who done it. Which isn't easy when you've got a monstrous hangover and only a world-weary sergeant and a half-wit police constable for backup. With no witnesses and every wedding guest a suspect, Roberta will need to use every one of her little gray cells if she's going to catch the killer and get out of there alive." So it's an isolated close-circle mystery with like a hotel setting, which both of those I really like. Like, I don't know what it is about hotel settings, but I really like them for some reason. So yeah, I'm really excited for this. I think it's gonna read pretty quickly as well. It's not too long. And I think it's gonna be fun. Like, it's not like a 5-star prediction necessarily, but I just expect to have a fun time with it. And that's what I want. So yeah, really excited for this. So that is the TBR for this video for the next little bit more than a week probably, which is also the first week of Realmathon, which is a readathon hosted by Cassidy from a channel Covers with Cassidy. I'll also link her down below. And I was looking at the prompts for Realmathon, and one of them is to let a die decide what book you're going to read next. So I thought, how about I roll a die to decide which one of these books I'll start off with. Now there's actually 2 prompts like that, because if you don't know Realmathon, you can either defend your team, so get points for your team with a book, or you can attack another team where you take away points from them. And for each of those, there is a prompt that's related to rolling a die. And for one of them, it's just let a die decide. For the other is roll a die, and that's like the amount of words in the title you need. So I thought, how about I kind of combine those prompts in the hope that the book I get might work for both. Because Cleopatra has 1 word. Aquitania, land van water, is 4 words. And the corpse word Tartan is 5 words. So I thought, how about I assign numbers 1 and 2 to Cleopatra, number 3 and 4 for Aquitania, and then 5 and 6 for and the corpse word Tartan. So I actually already did the dice roll, so I'll insert that clip right here. Okay, so I will do the proper intro for this video later. You will have seen it right before this clip, but I already wanted to roll for what my first book is. Let's roll and figure out what I'll read. And I rolled a 4, which means I'll be starting with Aquitania, Lonesome Acid, which is great because no, this is not on TV. Well, I'll be starting with this. And as you can see, Aquitania, Lonesome Acid 1. I am 84 pages into it, says a little under a third. Maybe it's more like a quarter, actually. How many pages is that? Between a quarter and a third of the way through. And I'm having mixed feelings at this point. So we have a multi-POV story where like Eleanor is, like, I would say the primary POV. We still get perspective of other people as well. I know, like, the child from the synopsis is one of them. Like, his POV is literally just called child. And then we have, you know, other, like, Eleanor's uncle gets a perspective. Eleanor's future husband gets a perspective. So we have a bit of multi-POV. And the narration feels very modern. Like, it's a very, like, anachronistic narrative voice, but it feels deliberate. So, like, I don't really mind that, but it is just something to, you know, be aware of if you're going to pick up this book, that it doesn't really read like a historical fiction. Like, it always reads more like a fantasy. So yeah, I don't mind that, but it's just a thing that I noticed. I am very excited for some of the scheming that is going to happen, because I feel like I've got to a point where that is going to start. So I'm very excited for that because I really love some good politics in a book. Also because, like, certain people know stuff that the plans were made assuming that they wouldn't know, and now they do know, and so we have to, like, adjust, and that sounds really fun there. However, it's not fully gripping me at this point just yet. Like, I'm very easily able to put this down, where I feel like once I'm really sucked in, this could be like something I just keep devouring, but now I have, like, no problem putting it down. So I wish that were a little more the case. Also, there have been 2 instances so far that, like, something was described, and I'm just very puzzled as to, like, how it is, like, physically possible what they're describing. Like, there's one that, like, the child is captured at one point, and he is sort of, they put him, like, next to, like, this stack of, like, soap thing, because he's from a place where they make soap. Like, there's blocks of soap are, like, piled up, and he's like, oh, I grew up here, and so I know that, like, if you pile up soap, that you have to, like, leave some space in between them so, like, air can still get through, because otherwise, you know, it's not good for the soap. So, like, there's space in there for me to hide. So, like, he takes one singular block of soap away and then crawls through the space inside the pile, and I'm like, if, like, taking away one piece of soap from this pile is enough to create a hole that is big enough to crawl into, how freaking massive are these blocks of soap? I'm so confused by that. Like, I mean, also, I personally would just knock over the tower. Like, if that happened, like, but I'm clumsy, so that can be the thing. But like, I'm just so, I really want to know. I can't picture that scene like at all, because it just does not seem possible. Yeah, right. And there was like another instance like that, and I was like, how does this work though? So yeah, it's a little odd. But I'm like thinking, are these like things that are like part of like some sort of historical narrative about this person, that like, oh, according to like legend, they hid inside a pile of soap. And so the author is like writing it into her book, even though I don't know if it's really possible. But it's, I don't know, I need more explanation for that. Also, the writing style is kind of weird, but I think that it's just like the translation not really being bad. Because like, there are sometimes there are like words used and I'm like, that's not, you mean this other thing? That I'm like, that is not what that's called. Or that's not what that word is. So I just have questions with the translation, and I think that maybe some of like the weird other sentences in here might be just like the translator not being the best. I feel kind of bad at saying that, but I'm kind of, you know, it's a little bit weird. But yeah, anyway, that is my update for Aquitania. I think I could read this pretty quickly though. Like I could probably read it and knock this out in a couple days. So yeah, that is my update. Sorry if this is messy and terrible. There's a lot of noise outside. Like, I don't know what it is today, but there's so much noise, and I'm sort of trying to stop when it gets too loud, so like you don't just have to listen to like some random loud engine or something like that. And then like I lose my train of thought. So sorry if this intro is a little weird, but yeah. Anyway, I'll probably do some work actually, and then read after that. And I'll talk to you once I have an update. Bye. Okay, it is now Thursday and I finished Aquitania. And let's talk about it. I think where I left off in the previous clip, I said that I was liking certain things, not liking other things. I feel like the writing got a little bit better for me. There were fewer sentences that were constructed weird, or like confusingly. There were a few instances that was like, okay, like you choose a very fancy word where you could have used a much more common word. And I didn't really see why, because it like isn't necessarily a super stylized writing style necessarily. It's quite straightforward. So I think that sometimes there were translation choices, because I think it's a translation. Like at the beginning I wasn't quite sure, but near the end I'm like, yeah, this is probably like the translator making choices that I would have done differently. But they didn't bother me as much as they did in the first part. The plot, I got invested like at about the halfway point. Like before that I was enjoying it and I was enjoying seeing what was happening, but it felt more like I was watching from a distance rather than that I was like really connecting to it. And that kind of came, but only in Eleanor's POV though. Like the other two POV from Louis and from the child they weren't bad, but I wasn't nearly as invested. But I mean, Eleanor's POV was definitely the main one and had the most chapters, so I feel like it makes sense that I was the most invested in her. The ending felt very rushed, though. Like part 4 was like, yeah, I don't know, it's, how long is it? It's like a little over 40 pages long, and I really think that it needed a little bit more so that I could breathe a little bit more, because right now we just flew through, and to the point where it was kind of hard to follow what was going on sometimes. So I wish that the author would have taken a little bit more time for the ending, and I feel like it would be a little more satisfying, because that's also a thing. I don't think the plot of this feels very satisfying, because, well, it's a biofiction, so you're kind of, by the nature of the subgenre, you're kind of limited to true events and the life of a person, which isn't necessarily like a tightly closed off whole. Like in the author's note, the author said that she took some liberties with certain elements of the timeline. Like, for example, a certain person was already dead by the time something happened, but here they were still alive to witness that sort of stuff. Like, so certain liberties can be taken, but generally we're kind of limited to their life. And the author also mentioned in the author's note that Eleanor's life is just so eventful that it is way too much for like one novel. And I do agree with that. I think that trying to pack her entire life in one novel would be insane. And so she opted to sort of go with the early years, like between the death of her father and her return from like crusades. But because of that, it doesn't, like, there is a through line because she tries to figure out who was behind the assassination of her father. So like, there is sort of like a thread connecting it, but then that kind of got dropped in the middle for a whole part. And so we're doing other stuff and that doesn't fully get resolved, I feel like. And so it feels like the first book in a series rather than a standalone, which is, I think, my main complaint. And I just wish that the author would have written more books about Eleanor and made this a series where we get to see her, later, like, continue the story. I think that for me would have made this feel a little bit more satisfying, because I don't think that it really wraps up enough to be a standalone. So yeah, those are my main thoughts. I enjoyed the political scheming, like I always do. But yeah, that is my review for this. I'm not sure what I'm going to give this. I'm thinking, because the thing is, a 3.5 feels low, but a 4 feels high. So like either one of those, because I don't know quarter stars. But yeah, I'm going to think about that and I'm going to decide later on. But let's submit this for her kit. I already mentioned at the start of this video that I was going to use this for water in the title for the Avatar challenge, which means that I've now finished that challenge, aka I'm the Avatar. That's cool. And then I'm also going to be using it for the translation challenge because this book is originally written in Spanish. So I need 2 more books for the translation challenge, but if I finish my March TBR, the challenge will be finished as well. So yeah. Then let's see what this works for a Realmathon. I haven't really looked into that yet, because the way Realmathon works is you have like a whole list of prompts. You can either attack another team or you can defend your own team. Like defending means that your team gets points. Attacking means that the other team points get taken away from them. And there's like a whole list of prompts and you can use up to 5 per book. So I'm just gonna go over them. There's different prompts for defending or attacking, so I'm just gonna go over what it works for either option, and I'll look what gives me the most points, right? So, okay, let's see. There is no icon between the author and title on the spine, so that doesn't work. It is not part of an interconnected world, so that doesn't work. POC author. Does a Spanish author count as POC? I really don't know. I'm gonna ask that. I'm gonna like write it down with a question mark. And I'm gonna ask and see what they say. Then, so that would be called reinforcements, which 5 attack points, that's quite a lot. Then Magic and Style, roll d6 for how many words in the title. I did that because I rolled a 4 and I read this, which is 4 words. So that works, that's 4 points. There is no the in the title, like also not the Dutch equivalent of the. So that's another 4 points. Wow, this is a lot of high points. The author writes in multiple genres because this is historical fiction. She also writes like detective crime thrillers. So that's another 4 points. I did not write this in one sitting. Well, there is one character with a hidden identity. Like the child, he shows up in the other POVs, but you don't know who he is until the end of the book. So I feel like that works. So that's 3 points. It was not a 5-star prediction. Is it outside my comfort zone? I don't think so. It is more pages than the last book I read, because the previous book, which was my last book of February, was Habitus, which was only 112 pages, and this is 340 something. So that is 2 points. So that means that if it works for BIPOC, I have 5, 9, 13, 17, 20 points. Or if it does not, I have 17 points. For attacking, for defending, there is no symbols in the title. It is not on voices. I highly doubt that any of the hosts read this. It is a book with parts, so that's 4 points. Aquitania is not 2 lines on the cover. It is not a second chance book. There are structural openings because we have buildings at the bottom and they have like windows and doors. So structural opening is 3 points. I did randomize my TBR with the dice, so that is 3 points. It is not dystopian. Is this the author's backlist? They have a more recent one, so it is the author's backlist, so that's 2 points. It is not a different format from the last because I both wrote them physically, but it does have multiple POVs, so that's another 2 points, which means that for attacking I would get 14. Either way, oh sorry, for defending I would get 14. Either way, attacking is more because like it's either 20 or 17. So I'm gonna do that, I think. Now the question is, what team do I attack? I think there is like one team that I'm pretty sure has a bonus prompt of a mystery in the book. Which, yes, the rogues have a book with a mystery element, which kind of like this book does. So I feel like it feels kind of fitting to attack the rogues with this one. So that's what I'm gonna do. It does not fit any of my bonus rounds for my team because it's not a school setting. It does not have fooling on the cover, and there is no trials or competition in this. It is between 201 and 400 pages, so that means that we also get to like 20 positive points for my team. So yeah, that is the book. I'm gonna start something new. So I'm a little bit in limbo what I need to do. I'm not sure what I should pick next because I have Cleopatra and the Courtsword Tartan for this book, and I'm really excited about both, but I was like thinking, okay, what's gonna be the smartest to read next? And I was thinking Cleopatra might be very similar to this one, so I might read and the Courtsword Tartan first, sort of like an in-between thing, and then Cleopatra. But then also I am in the background reading a audiobook that is also a mystery. So I don't know if combining and the Courtsword Tartan with that one, if those are going to be dissimilar. So that is sort of where I'm at, but I'm actually just really excited for In the Courtsword Tartan. So I just think I'm gonna pick that one, to be honest. Okay, that's decided. I'm gonna read that one next. That was easy. So yeah, I'll start that and I will talk to you once I'm a decent chunk of the way through. Okay, I have updates. Please ignore the sound of the dishwasher in the background. So when we last spoke, I was going to start and the course war Tartan corpse court I never know how to pronounce that word by Stuart McBride, and I did start it and I read 2 chapters and I hated them. So at the end of it, both of them were from the perspective of someone who is very drunk, and I just don't really care about reading from the perspective of someone who's this level of drunk for like the full 2 chapters that I have read. And just generally like the narrative voice just really didn't work for me. So I DNF'd this on like page 16 because I did not want to do it. So I needed to find a new February release. But then I remembered that the April pick for the book club hosted by Kirsten from the channel Reading Nymph on our Discord, we're going to be reading Agnes Obert's Mystical Cat Shelter. Is that what it's called? The newest Heather Fawcett book, which came out in February, and we have 60 days to read things. So if I read it in like the first half of the month, it still works. So I'm just going to wait till April and then read that one. So I moved on to our book number 3, which is Cleopatra. And I've also decided to DNF this. Yeah, sad times. But also, again, the narrative voice didn't work for me. Like, you can write a historical story with a very modern feeling narrative voice. You can do that, but then that has to be a choice. This is one of those books where it feels like we have a very modern voice, very modern sensibilities, very modern narrative, because the author is incapable of thinking something different than what we currently think is normal. Right? And that just doesn't work for me personally. I think that you should know history well, have a very good grasp of history before you can start subverting it. And the way it is executed here doesn't feel like I know the history well enough that I could deliberately depart from it. It is more like I know a bit about the life of Cleopatra, but not really how society is structured, not really how just everyday life was in this time period, and so I'm just winging it on that front type of thing, and I just don't love that. So I didn't want to, especially because, like, antiquity, I know too much about antiquity to do this. Like, if it was like the 16th century, I don't know anything about the 16th century, so like I am a lot less nitpicky about that. I can be fine with a lot of things in the 16th century, but like I know antiquity far too well to not be annoyed with this. So yeah, I DNF'd this, unfortunately, and I was like, wow, 2 DNFs in one day is a lot. But also, then I've also DNF'd my Women's History Month pick for HRCYED. And I tried, well, you don't technically have to read them within the month, but I tried to do that. So I would have to pick another one for March. And I was like looking into options, but like none of them was like really calling to me. So then I remembered, there's also secret prompts. If you don't know HRCYED, you can, they're always announced at the beginning of the month, and then you have to do them within that month, and then you get a little reward. And the reward for completing the February prompt was that you could have one book count for an unlimited number of prompts. Like, I mean, they have to fit the prompts, obviously, but usually you can only count every book twice. But like one book that you can pick, the sky's the limit. And initially I was going to pick On Earth as It Is Beneath by Ana Paula Maya for that, because it fit a bunch of things. But then I read other things that also fit that, and like you can use every book twice, as already said, and so like if I, like, it only fit 2 prompts, and one of those was one of them that On Earth As It Is Beneath, or I, like the book that I plan to read for the more secret prompt is you have to do like a doom scroll on some social media, and the first book that you see that you haven't read yet, that'll be the one. And I saw, is it Dragons and Dating and Dragons by Christy Boyce, which has a teal cover, and like teal cover was another one of those prompts that were like the harder ones that I would want to use On Earth As It Is Beneath for. So like the only ones I have left, that there's 2 that I really have to pick this book for, and then there's like the BIPOC challenge, but it's such an easy challenge. I'm like, I don't really need to do it. So I decided to switch and instead to Aquitania for that, because this fits Women's History Month. And that way I have ticked off that one too. In fact, that means I actually have finished 3 whole challenges with this because, well, I originally initially planned to use it for the Avatar challenge, which is finished with that because I only needed earth. No, not earth, water. Sorry, I only need water. Is because the other one is on earth. It is me. That's why earth is in my brain. Water, which this one hit. But then I also finished the last 10 years because this book was originally published in 2020 and it was the only year I was missing. So finished that. I also finished the award season because this won I don't remember what the award is called, but it's won an award, so I could use it for that. And so those were 3 prompts that I finished with this one, and then, as I said, I used it for Women's History Month, so the Heritage Month challenge. I used it for the translation challenge, and then I also used it for, what else did I use this for? Subgenre of choice, because I do historical fiction, and this one is like political historical fiction, which I still needed. So I ended up filling 6 prompts with this one book, which feels pretty good. And so I've also completed Women's History Month. So I still have completed I completed 6 prompts, which was the goal for this video. I completed 2 of the prompts that I wanted to because Cleopatra would have gone for the subgenre challenge and women's history, so like did that. Actually more because I didn't have anything else to count and the coursework written for, so actually more. So it worked out. Also I DNF'd 2 books, so I thought this video might end on a bit of a bummer. So instead, I already mentioned earlier that I was reading an audiobook in the background, which doesn't help me for HRCYED at all because I have no HRCYED prompts left where this fits. But I thought, how about I talk about that one because I really enjoyed this one, and then we end on a positive note, right? So the book I read was the Cornish Wedding Mystery by Fiona Leitch, which is the first book in the Nosey Parker mysteries. It's about this woman, Jody, who is an ex-cop, and she returns to her hometown because she's now a caterer, and she's catering this wedding. And then the groom's ex-wife ends up dead, and the bride goes missing. So, you know, not great. And Jody is gonna try to solve the mystery. Usually I'm not the biggest fan of like an amateur sleuth, even if like Jody, they are an ex-cop. But in this one, I did like it because a lot of the clues that she finds is basically just down gossip that the police wouldn't have access to, and so it makes sense that she would find out certain things before the police would. So I liked that there is some romance, like a love triangle kind of being set up, that I'm sure is gonna continue playing a role in the rest of the series. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but yeah, we'll see. But this one, like, the mystery wasn't the main focus. It was definitely about like Jody and the community and the relationships that they have and the relationships that she has with people, which I did enjoy. So yeah, I had a fun time. I think I'm gonna give it 4 stars. So yeah, I enjoyed this. I would recommend. I would definitely want to continue with this. Like, I probably wouldn't binge it. Like, it's not a series that I like feel the urge to like pick up the second book right now, but I would want to do it at some point. So yeah, let's submit for HRCYED. Yeah, let's figure out what it works for. So I'm going to do the same thing as I did with Aquitania. So let's see, if I were to attack, there is an icon between the author and the title on the spine. Well, I read this on audiobook. I of course, so I didn't have a spine. I found a picture with like a pile of books from that series. This particular one wasn't in that stack, but all the other books had an icon between, so I'm just going to assume that this one is 2 because it feels weird to have like one book in the series that doesn't and all the others do. So that is 5 points. It is not a book that has interconnected world or series. It is not by a POC author. I did not roll a d6 for how many words in the title. There is the in the title. The author, as far as I'm aware, doesn't write in multiple genres. Let me look that up really quickly. She seems to have written horror short stories. So, like as part of an anthology. So she does write in multiple genres. So that's 4 points. None of the characters have an identity. It wasn't necessarily a 5-star prediction. It is kind of a semi-comfort zone because I don't really a ton of like cozy mysteries. Like if I read a mystery, it's more like a detective, police procedural type thing, usually. So that's 2. It is 369 pages, which is more than Aquitania, because that was like 340 something. So it is more pages than my previous book. So that's 2 points. I didn't really haul it, but I'm not gonna kind of I did start a series, so that's 1 point. So for attacking, I would get 14 attack points. If I were to defend, it does not have a symbol in the title. It is not significantly owned voices. I don't think any of the hosts have given this 5 stars. It is not a book with parts. The author's name is not 2 lines on the cover. It isn't really a book with second chances. There is a structural opening on the cover because there is like a building that has windows and doors. So yeah, I did not randomize my TBR with a die. This was not dystopian. This was an author's backlist, so that's 2 points. It was not multiple POV. It was not a sequel. It was fast-paced, so a point for that. And I didn't buy it, so that's a point for that, which means I got 8 defend points. So that means I'm gonna attack, right? Because like it's almost double. What team I'm gonna attack? I decided for Aquitania to instead attack the paladins instead of the rogues. So maybe this time I will go with the rogues. I'll go with rogues. I said I was gonna do paladins for Aquitania, but I didn't. When I was filling in the form, I was like, I'm gonna go with paladins. I don't know why, but I did. So this one I will go with rogues, and then whichever book I read next, I will go with clerics. But so yeah, it does not have foiling on the cover. It does not have a competition. It doesn't have a school setting, so no bonus points for that, but it is between 201 and 400 pages, so that is plus 20 as well for the mages. So yeah, that was the vlog. Let me give you some HRCYED stats for my progress to leave you off with. I have now completed 134 prompts out of the estimated 187, which is not necessarily the amount of books I read because one book can count for multiple prompts, but 134 prompts filled, which is 71.66%. In order to be on track at the end of February, I would have to be at 75%, which is 141 prompts filled. So I just need to fill 7, which sounds very doable. So yeah, that is the stats. I will put the bingo board as it is right now on screen. As you can see, I completed quite a few things. I did the award season. I did the last 10 years and the Avatar challenge. The other ones I'd already finished before the start of March, or before the last HRCYED vlog. But so yeah, this vlog didn't really go as I had planned, but yeah, we'll go with it. Anyway, that was the vlog. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll hope to talk to you soon in a video. Bye.